What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about storing users with ES6 classes. Oh yeah, we're getting in deep now. So you might be wondering why we need to actually store users. The reason why is because last video we actually just configured our join, so anybody could join a room and then you'll get the right admin message. But if you started to create a message, that message will be broadcasted or emitted everywhere, no matter what room you're in. It'll create a new message for every room. So it's not really narrowed down to the specific room that you want. That's because we don't have access to the params.name and params.room, the name and the room. We don't have access inside of create message. We only have access to those parameters inside of the join. So we need that to actually start creating messages, so that way we could actually narrow down what room and who did it come from, and also for create location message. And we're going to be doing this with ES6 classes. Now there's a lot of ways you could have done this, but you know, just for you guys to actually get a little, dip your toes in classes or ES6 classes, we're going to do it with ES6 classes. So inside of utils, we're going to create a new file called users.js. And this is where we're going to create our classes for the users anyways. So we are going to be storing users inside of an array, and that array is going to be an array of objects. So it might look something like this. There's going to be an array and an array object, and we're going to have the ID, which will look like something like this. And this ID is actually the socket ID. So every time you create a socket, I could actually do this right now. We could actually log out socket.id. like that. Control save. Let me just start this node server. Let's go on here, and you'll see right here it's going to log out some ID. So we need to actually go in here, create a room. See, we get this weird ID. This is a socket ID. Now if I did another one from somebody else, it doesn't matter which one, you'll get a new user with a new ID. Now these are unique, obviously. They do need to be unique, but you do get this ID, and this is how we're going to be storing it inside of here. This is how we're going to know who's it from, and what that ID is going to have the user, obviously, because we just logged in, and the room name. So we're going to have an ID. We're going to have a name, which mine would something like this, WDJ, and then we're going to have like a room, which whatever room they join in, which is like node.js. So this is what we're going to be creating, but with classes. So let's go down with classes. So creating classes, I don't know if you've ever done like Java or any object-oriented programming language or OP, but they're pretty extremely simple. So you create a class by typing in the keyword class and then naming this class. We're going to name it user. So we have this class right now. There's nothing inside of it, but the reason why we want to create a class is because we want to create instances of this class. So how do you create an instance? Well, you literally just do create a variable called, I don't know, let's call it me for now. And we're going to set that equal to new user, just like that. And this is how you create it. You just created a class. You created an instance of a class. Let me tell you that. So we could actually play around with this right now. So inside of classes, every class takes in a constructor. And this constructor is a function. Now this constructor, when you get an instance of the class, this runs automatically. We don't have to call it by any means. It runs automatically. Now what do I mean by that? Well, let's do this right now. Let's actually put in a name, which is WDJ, and the room, or the age, which I'm 27. In here, we're gonna take in a name and an age. Like I said, this constructor is a function and it runs automatically. So in here, we're gonna literally just log out, name, and age. Just like so. Let me comment this out so that way we don't get any errors. And let me just do node server, and it's inside of utils, so /utils /user.js, and what do we get? WDJ 27. Like I said, every time you create an instance, this runs automatically. So now we could actually play around with it even more. So we're gonna actually assign this instance of me. So this dot name, and I'll explain this in a bit, equals name, and this dot age equals age. All right. So this keyword, this confuses a lot of people, and this is not a a video about this, but I'm gonna make it as simple as possible. This is literally the instance that's calling the class. So this refers to me. So you could think of this being like me.name and this one being me.age, just like this. But if we had another one calling it right here, let me create another one. I'm gonna put me too, I guess. If this one creates it, well, you could just think about this one like me2.name and me2.age. So replace the actual instance with just this, and this is how you actually get it. This is as simple as I could actually make you understand it. Now, what can you do with this? Well, obviously, if we run it right now, we don't get anything because we're not counting logging anything. But if we do log and we do me.age or .age and then me.name, control save, you could actually see that we get 27 and WDJ back. Now, if we did another one, let me copy this. Copy. And I'm gonna just change this to Mike. And his name is Mike. And he's, I don't know, 25. Now, if we run this, we'll get 27 WDJ for the first one, and then 25 and Mike for the second one. So we're creating instances of this user class right now. And this is how we're going to be doing it for this array. So there are four methods, or actually four methods that we're going to have to add. So after the constructor, we could actually start adding methods down here. And there are four we need to add. Add user, because we need to add user every time someone joins or logs in. We need to add that user. You know, get the ID, the name, and the room for that user. We have to remove a user, so that way when they leave that chat, back inside of here, localhost. Oh, let me run it. Node. Right here, we're gonna have a list of people. Remember that. So when they leave, we want to remove them from this list. We need to have a get user by their ID, so that way we know where they're at, and we also need to do get user list by room, so that way we know exactly who's in that room. So those are the four methods we're going to be adding right now. We're going to actually start off with just removing this. We don't need this. And removing this constructor. We don't need that either. In the constructor, we do need an array though. So I'm going to say this dot users is going to equal an empty array. And we're going to be modifying this array when we start adding users, removing users. Down here, we're going to create a method called add user. And it's going to be a function, or a method, and I'm going to give it the ID, the name, and the room. Those are the arguments we're going to be passing in. And we're going to set let user equal, and we're going to create an object with the ID being the ID. So we could just literally leave it like that. Name being the name and room being the room. And then we're going to create an instance of, well, not an instance, we're gonna actually just push it into this user array. Sorry about that. So this dot users dot push user. Now remember, this is the instance that is referring to. We haven't created an instance, so just know that this and this is the user that, or the instance being referenced of the instance that created it. Did I make myself clear? I'm pretty sure I did. So, and then we're gonna just return user, just like that. And we're actually going to be testing this with Mocha. So let's export this. Exports equals users. Control save, or actually, yeah, let me change this to users instead of user. And now let's create another file in here called, you guessed it, users.test.js. And this is where we're going to be creating our test. So const, we need our expect, so expect equals require expect, and we also need to get the user class. So users going to be equal to require, and we're going to get it from the current directory and users. Now let's create our describe block, which this one should be users. So now time for our test unit. It should add new user, create an object right here. So we're going to create a variable with calling the users class. So we're going to create an instance. So let users equal new users. So right here we created an instance of the users class. Now we're going to create a user. So let user equal, create an object. We're going to make the ID be a string. It doesn't matter because we didn't specify what the ID should look like. The name, we're going to set that equal to anything, WDJ. And the room, we're going to set that equal to the Office fans. Great series, you should watch it. And that is that for that. Now we're going to create another another variable, let res user. This is what we get back from the users instance. So users dot add user. We're going to be passing in the user dot ID, user dot name, and user dot room. So we're saving these, whatever we get from add user, back into reuser. Okay, so this is where we're going to start making assumptions, expectations, I guess. We expect users dot users. I know it's kind of confusing, I will explain. Dot to equal user. So sorry for the double users right here. Let me explain what's going on right here. This should be pretty simple right here up until right here. So users, this first users is this users instance that we created, and we're going to be accessing the users array that we created up here. That's the second users, and we're going to set that equal. We want this array that's coming back, we want that array to actually equal this user right here. And obviously this array is an array of objects, so that's why we just put an array with an object inside of it, which is users. Let's control save this, get rid of this, and we're going to do node server /utils Or actually, no, we don't have to do that. Sorry, we do npm test. Sorry about that. And we get 6 passing tests, which our users is right here. Should add new user. Awesome. So now that we have this in place, we could actually start going back and do our other methods, which is removing a user, getting a user by the ID, and getting the user room. But since we do need data, or see data anyways, we do need to create what? We need data for that to happen, because right now we're adding users, which is simple, but when we start testing, we don't have that much data to go off of. So we're going to create see data over here, just above, right here. We're actually going to be creating see data. Okay, so we're going to create a variable, let users, and we're going to leave it undefined right now because we're going to define it down below. So we're going to use this method called before each, which literally is going to happen before it runs any of these tests. Obviously, we're going to have more tests. We're going to have 3 more to be exact. Remember, adding or removing and getting user by ID, whatever. We're going to have 3 more of those. So this before each is going to happen before it runs every test. So it'll do this and then run this test, and then do this, run the other test, do the before each, and then run the other test, etc., so on and so on. So let's do that right now. Before each, we want to actually create see data. So users, we're going to set that equal to a new users. So we're creating an instance, and we're going to set users, the array. So users dot users, and we're going to set that equal to array of objects, and we're going to be doing 3 of them. So we're accessing the users, this user, the instance, and we're accessing the array from in here, and we're just hard coding the object stored in there already. So I'm just going to copy this right here, actually just inside of it. Copy that, paste it right here. ID, I'm gonna just put 1. Name, Mike. The office fans. That's it. Doesn't really matter. We're just creating seed data. I'm gonna do this 2 more times. So I'm gonna just grab this, copy, paste, and we're gonna do ID 2, and we're gonna do Sam for this one, and we're gonna do what's another one? Scrubs fan. It's a great one. And we're gonna do ID 3. We're gonna name this one Jose, and this one's going to be How I Met Your Mother. All great series. You should watch them all. But we are done. We just created seed data. Now we can actually go back inside of our users.js and add those other methods we were talking about. So first one is get user list. We're going to be passing in the room number, or the room name anyways. And how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to create a variable called users. We're going to set that equal to this, whatever instance is calling it, users dot filter. We're going to be filtering out user dot room. We're going to be filtering out the room. So if it equals the room we gave it in, we're going to want that into the users array. And then we're going to do another variable. This is going to be called names array. It's going to be set equal to users dot map user. Oh, let me grab this like that. User dot name. Let me explain what's going on right now, but let me just return names array, just like so. Okay, let me explain what's going on. In this first variable, we're going to be filtering out, we're going to be looping through this array, and we're going to be filtering out every room or any user.room that has the room we have in here. So if the user has this room that we have in here, we're going to add that to the users array. All right. But adding that to the user array, that means that we get all of these properties, the ID, the name, and room. Now, in the next variable, we actually just want the name. So that's what we're doing. We're just grabbing the names of all of the users array. We're grabbing this array now, and we're just going to grab the names array. And this is going to get the names. This is going to be the names array. And we're going to just return the names array. I mean, that's pretty simple. Back in the test.js, we're going to actually test this out. We're going to be creating two of them right here. So it should return names for node. Should return names for the office fans. The office fans. Okay. I am going to explain everything. I'm just trying to get it wrapped around my head. So var, we're going to create a variable called user list. And we're going to set that equal to user dot get user list, which is one we created. And we're going to be grabbing whatever user has the office fans. And actually, I'm going to just change this one, How I Met Your Mother, to the office fans. So that way we have actually two people that have the office fans, which is Mike and Jose. So once we get this user list, remember, get user list returns an array of the names that has the office fans inside of it, or the room office fans. So we should get back Jose and Mike. So we're going to expect user list 2.2 equal an array that has Mike and Jose. Now we're going to be creating another one. I'm going to copy this. And this one's going to say return users that has the names of Scrubs fans. So it's like that for Scrub fans, and replace this with Scrub fans. And we should only get one back, which is Sam. No, not that. Sam. Let me add my semicolons. Okay, one more. All right, now we could test it out. Let's see if we actually did it. And yes, we do. Awesome. We get our users back. Moving on to the next one. Down below. Get user by its ID. So ID. All right, so we want to get the user by the ID. So we're going to return. This is going to be pretty simple. And we're going to be using the filter method to do this. So we're going to return this dot users dot filter user. We're going to loop through users with the user, and we're going to get user dot ID. And we want to, if it equals the ID that we passed in, great, we want that user. And we're going to get the first element of that array. Let me explain what's going on. So I don't know if I explained what filter does. Filter actually just filters out what you want. So in this case, we want the user ID to equal the ID. If that's true, then just return that. But like I said, guys, this filter returns an array. So we're just going to grab the first element of the array, which is going to be the object itself. So if there's a user, great, we get an object. If there's no user, we get undefined. So we're going to be testing those two back over here. So down here, it should find user. So we're going to create a variable user ID with a user ID in it. So ID, and we're gonna set that equal to 2. Our C data does have a user ID with 2 in it. And we're also going to be creating another variable called user, which is going to be set to users dot get user. We're going to be passing in the user or user ID. Okay. Now we're going to expect user.id dot to be user ID. Let me explain. So we're grabbing our user 2, which is up here, our user 2. We're grabbing that user and we're just putting it in here. So we're going to grab it by our instance dot get user by 2. So we should get 2 back. So we expect user.id to be user ID. It's pretty self-explanatory right there. We're going to create another one. I'm going to copy this, paste it. This is going to be should not find user, so not find user. And we're going to just pass in a user that we don't have. An example would be, 150. We don't have a user ID that has 150. So this one we expect user.id, or actually user. We expect user, just user, to be undefined. Control save. Undefined, before I get that wrong. And let's try it out now. And we get 10 passing, which is great. Moving on to the next one. Our last one but not least, remove user. And it's going to take an ID. Oh, whoa. Not like that. Well, it's going to take an ID. So we need to get the user. We already have a method that does that. So we're going to just create a variable. Let user equal this dot get user. And we're going to pass in the ID up above. So we're going to get the ID back, or we're going to get the user back by this method, which we already have. That's why I saved this one for last. Go on to the next one. If there's a user, remember, this could return null or undefined, because there cannot be a user if there isn't one. So we got to check if there's a user. So if user, we're going to say this dot users. Now we're accessing the array up here. It's going to equal to this dot users dot filter user, and we're going to return user dot ID does not equal ID. Okay, let me explain what's going on right here. And then we're going to just return user. So let me explain what's going on right here. So we're going to set this new array up here to the array that we get back from filter. So we're filtering out the user that we don't want, the removed user, which is this one. We're trying to filter that one out. So we're going to just grab the ID. And if it does not equal the ID, we want it to pass it into this new array. We want to keep on passing it in. If it does equal the ID, which is the user that we want to get rid of, it's not going to pass that user inside of this array, which is what we want. And then we're going to return that new array or user back. Now let's go test it. Control save. Back over here, down below it should remove a user All right, so we got to create a variable. So let user ID, we got to get a user ID. I'm going to set this one equal to 1 for now, or actually the string 1, because I think there's strings. So string 1. And then we're going to create another one called user. And we're going to set that equal to users dot remove user. We're going to pass it in the user ID. You might be wondering where are we getting these users from? Well, it's all the way up here. Remember, we created this undefined where before every test, we're going to create a new instance of users. So this is the instance users. So after that, this is where we start expecting some stuff. So we expect user.id .toBe user ID. We want our ID back, but that's what we expect. And we also expect, we also expect users length .toBe 2. So remember, the users is this users instance we created. The second users is the array, this arrays, and we want that length, the array length, to be 2. Since we are removing one right now, we are removing this one user. There should only be 2 users inside of that. So there goes that. Just copy this. We're gonna do it. Should not remove user, so not remove user. We're gonna set this to 108, or what doesn't really matter. And then we want expect user to be undefined. And then we expect the user's length to be actually 3, since we did not remove any of them. Now let's try to run it. npm test, and we have 12 passing. Awesome, guys. That is going to be it for this video. In the next video, we are going to be wiring up our users list. Let me show you what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be displaying all the people right here for every room. There's going to be a list of people here, and we're also going to be just generating messages, our new messages and current location messages, to that specific room. So whoever's in that room is only going to be receiving messages for that room only. And that's going to be in the next video, guys. We did everything. We did everything right now. We created a users class, and we have all the proper methods to actually grab that stuff, persist data throughout the whole application. So that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. Leave a like if you learned something from this video, which I hope you did. Classes are pretty good, guys. And leave a comment down below if you're having trouble with something, or if you want me to explain something more in depth in the next video. I will gladly do it. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I forgot to say this in the beginning, but I do appreciate you guys taking some time off to actually watch my videos, and hopefully you learned something throughout all of this. And check out the new series that I'm creating, which is creating my personal website. So right now I just came out with a branding video. Just go watch it. I'll have that in the info card above and at the end screen. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.